Good morning, Moldies. Welcome to Monday Morning Musings. And yet again, I know I missed last week. A couple of you reached out. I appreciate it. I had the perfect storm of experiences that led to me getting about as sick as I've been, probably since medical school. I remember in medical school getting influenza and feeling like I was going to die, thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm never going to get influenza again. It's terrible. Obviously, back then, mandatory vaccinations, always was vaccinated for influenza all throughout medical school, through my career at the hospital, getting the flu vaccine. This past couple weeks, we had a crazy busy schedule. We were in Charlotte learning new things, doing a hormone conference. We happened to rent a car that was water damaged. We sat down in it, and it had been like a shit show getting to that point. Like, as most of you know that travel, getting a rental car is crazy, should not be as hard as it is. It is ridiculous now. So the line at the Charlotte airport was probably like 4 hours long. So we did like a budget company offsite. Got there, it was relatively smooth. There was one lady working at the counter, but there was one guy behind, in front of us. Took about 45 minutes to get the car. We get in, turn it on. The air conditioner's going at full blast. Only has like 1,000 miles on it, but just right away we can both smell the mold in the car. I don't know if they installed the windshield wrong or what happened. Couldn't even see the numbers kind of on the odometer, because it was so foggy back there. No idea what happened to the car. It was a shit show though. So that was the first hit. Obviously, getting a mold exposure. We started on cholestyramine right away, a binder for ochratoxin, which is the most common water damaged building, or in this case, water damaged car molds. So we started on that right away. We always travel with that. We started on our nasal spray right away. Unfortunately, we didn't feel like we had the time to wait to get a different rental car because it had already taken us so long. And you know how traveling is. You're busy, you don't sleep as well, it's not your bed. You do all the things to protect against getting ill. We had been feeling a little bit kind of on the, tired end of things, might have been, nursing a virus. So we immediately started 50,000 IU of vitamin D. If you don't have access to that, reach out to me. Orthomolecular has a great blister pack. 50,000 IUs of vitamin D for 5 days usually gets rid of anything. Great for, if you've been exposed to COVID, if you've been exposed to influenza, if you're feeling kind of under the weather. So we had started that. Went to our conference. Obviously we didn't block the schedule. So we got home. It was a rush. We had an early morning appointment on Monday morning when we flew in on Sunday, rushing back to get to Wisconsin. Had our craziness, and then Wednesday, Tuesday I kind of nursed through. Wednesday I was down and there was nothing I could do. I had done the 50,000 of vitamin D. We were out of zinc, so I couldn't add that in because that really is my recipe for getting through an illness. You want to up your zinc. Zinc picolinate is the most bioavailable form. I usually recommend 50 as your kind of nighttime dose in general to ward off yuckiness. And if you're feeling unwell, doubling that to 100. So taking 100 of zinc. We had run out of that. So that was our second mistake, having the water damaged car, rushing around, all the craziness of travel, and then running out of zinc. And I used to combine that with vitamin C. But with my research now with oxalates and working with Sally Norton, I found that vitamin C in the capsule form and the one you can take as a supplement is not good for people with oxalate sensitivities, which is presumed to be the majority of the population and pretty much all of the mold sufferers. So normally when I would add vitamin C in and just take a whole handful of vitamin C, that was not my go-to. So instead, I did things that had vitamin C in them. But obviously with the sore throat, a big glass of freshly squeezed orange juice or an orange was the last thing that sounded delightful. So tested negative for COVID all week, did like 5 tests, definitely wasn't a COVID, but definitely probably had influenza, 2 days of not being able to move, literally, body aches, headaches, sore throat, craziness, and then just evolution into the upper respiratory. As many of you know, influenza is not your vomiting and your diarrhea. I hear people say all the time, oh, I had the flu this weekend. I was shitting my brains out. I was throwing up. That is an influenza. Influenza is a respiratory virus. So it is sort of like I sound now, evolves feeling sort of like a cold, except you feel like you've been run over by a bus. Usually feverish. I had a fever. I think my Oura ring told me up to 104. So when you get an illness, first thing you do is obviously pump the liquids. Your body is using tons of fluid to get rid of those invaders, whether they be viral invaders, bacterial invaders, whatever kind of invaders. So lots of fluids. You want to keep your mucus nice and thin so it comes out. Mucinex is a good option. Mucinex D during the day is going to help declog, bring everything down. There is a nighttime Mucinex that has a little bit of Benadryl in it. Obviously, Benadryl for long periods, not great for you, increases your risk of dementia. So those of you that are using Benadryl as a sleep aid, I encourage you to reach out to me, schedule a consult so we can talk a little bit about your sleep. That's not a good ongoing sleep aid for you because it does put you at very high risk of early dementia. But for the short term, when you're nursing an illness and you need to get your sleep, not a problem. So high dose vitamin D, 50,000 a day. I double up my zinc from 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams. Try to get in at least a gallon of water a day. I used, liquids with vitamin C. I had some orange juice, apple cider this time of year. Organic apple cider is a great way to get fluids in, especially when you're not interested in eating. So you have a little bit of a caloric intake. And number one, we shouldn't have taken the moldy car. That was our first mistake, but you know how it is. You get there, you've traveled, it's been a pain in the dupa. You have your suitcases loaded in the car. You just want to get to the Airbnb and unpack and get started with your trip. And the last thing you want to do is have to go back in and be like, do you guys have another car? Should have done it. The last time I had a really significant mold insult was when I was taking a trip with the bestie, and we stayed in a Hyatt in, I think it was Cleveland. It was in Ohio somewhere. We were on our way home from Asheville, and same thing. I rented the place on Priceline. Priceline doesn't give refunds if you choose not to stay there. We walked into the first room. I knew it was water damaged. We saw all of the rooms that were available. I think they had, like 6, when we went to each one, they all were musty. I said, F it, we'll just stay. How bad can it be to just stay overnight? And that was one of my big mold exposures. Woke up in the morning with the first migraine I'd had in years. So mold is always going to lead to things with your immune system. And a lot of times when I have my moldy or my Lyme's, they'll tell me that they haven't been sick in years, like this, this kind of thing. Like their kids will come home with strep throat, their loved ones will come home and snot all over them and they don't get anything. That's actually not a good sign. That means that your immune system is being paralyzed by the mold or the Lyme, and it's not responding appropriately. And now we don't care about not getting the common cold or strep throat or the flu. What we do care about it missing is big things like cancer. So that's why we really want to jump on mold. We really want to get to the bottom of what's causing our immune system to be paralyzed. Because if we don't, in the long term, it can really hurt us. It can miss big things. And it can lead to things like neurodegenerative conditions. It can lead to things like cancer or heart disease. So my musings were kind of a rant today, but I just wanted to let you know I missed you guys last week. I actually canceled patients for the first time probably in 10 years for 2 days. I responded to no one. I literally like slept for 20 hours a day and just nurtured myself, which is another point that I make. So many of you, so many of my moldies are high achievers. We're go, go, go all of the time. We're pushed through. We get this done. One of the problems with this illness is that cortisol is like gas on the fire. So the more cortisol we put, the worse we're going to get. So if we push our bodies in times like this, when they are trying to heal, it is the worst possible thing we can do. And I had to take my own advice. I had like that come to Jesus moment where I was like, I can just push through. I'll just take some Excedrin. I'll make it. And I was like, you know what? First thing is I have to heal myself before I can heal others. Put on your oxygen mask before you put those on around you. So I hope you guys have a beautiful Monday. It is sunny and bright in Chicago, and it is a week where we are not commuting because we have not yet found a brick and mortar establishment. So I'm seeing patients virtually for now. So we are enjoying being in Chicago all week and not having to run. I hope you have a beautiful day filled with love, light, rainbows, and unicorns. Have a good one.